the big story. Eurogamer has published a report about Nintendo's NX announcing that it is a portable-focused hybrid console with detachable controllers. It uses cartridges and tons more news. So let's get a handle on this here. The main unit is a portable gaming device with 2 controller attachments, one on each side. It comes with a docking station that connects to the TV to create a home console gaming experience when you dock the portable there, and you can take the controller attachments off then to use them on the couch. It runs on a Nintendo-made OS and uses Nvidia Tegra X1 chip, or at least the dev kits do, and it won't be backwards compatible with Wii U, 3DS, or presumably any other system. Although the Wall Street Journal added that it will be compatible with Nintendo's mobile games. Finally, Eurogamer said Nintendo plans to unveil NX in September, and they plan to have a marketing campaign with the simple message that you can now play your games both at home and on the go. Now, to be clear here, this is a report, not a rumor. There's a very big difference, so don't get the two confused. But Eurogamer is a very esteemed publication, so I'm sure none of us have any trouble calling true on all counts here.
Yeah, seeing how Eurogamer is reporting it, IGN is saying they've heard the same thing, Kotaku's saying they've heard secondhand rumors that say the same thing, MTV UK is saying the same thing, Wall Street Journal is saying the same thing. It's all pointing at legitimate sources that are saying this is true, not just random no-name Nintendo fan sites.
Like us!
Yes, like this podcast. So I'm definitely going to throw my hat in the...
I also believe this is
same here.
And because we said it's true, it's going to be true, right?
Yeah, right. We know everything.
Even if it wasn't, we've changed the future now.
Yeah.
So what do we think of this?
So my first reaction was, didn't Satoru Iwata say there wasn't going to be a hybrid? But then I went back and reread his statements, and that's not really what he said. Because what he really said was, just because we're unifying our development division doesn't necessarily mean we're working on only one device. And maybe this isn't the only device. Maybe there are more devices, and this is just the first one they're releasing.
Maybe.
Right, we heard that family of systems line a lot.
Yeah, and he also said, I'm not sure if we'll only need one machine. Maybe we'll need more machines, depends on demand. And this would clearly be the one machine that maybe they're starting with, and maybe there will be more. So... it was a big surprise at first, but when I went back and reread what was actually said, a few years ago, it seems like this should have been really obvious in hindsight.
I mean, I wasn't surprised to hear any of this. This lines up with just about everything we've been saying, about NX reports in the last year plus. Handheld console hybrid, like it uses cartridges, like it's going to be... Yeah, I mean, so I kind of feel like I just don't really have any more to say about it at this point.
Well, I guess my biggest question is going to be how they distribute and sell this, as in, can you buy the handheld component separately from the home console component, or vice versa? Can you get a special bundle if you buy them both? Because we've seen Nintendo filed a patent for a dock that boosts the power of a handheld device, essentially. So if that's what they're going with, or we could have a standalone handheld component, and then maybe you buy the dock separately if you want to play it on your home console, or maybe you can buy them together. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with this. And that could be kind of key, because, we saw branding problems and confusion with Wii U and people not being sure what it was or if it was just an attachment for Wii. So if they're going to be releasing multiple different products, or even just a product that comes in 2 different pieces or whatever, I think they got to be really careful about how they market it and how they price it.
So I think that if they've got this one simple marketing message that you can play your games both at home and on the go, I don't think they would be selling them separately. Because that would just confuse the message. And I think that's what Iwata was talking about when he said, maybe down the line we'll figure out how to do different devices, if there's enough demand, etc., etc. But this is already a console with so many different moving parts to it. No pun really intended. It's kind of just literal. That it's going to confuse consumers a lot, I think, unless they really hit that message out of the park, and it's made and built in a way that really makes a lot of intuitive sense for people to use. Motion controls was kind of a weird thing to wrap your head around, but when you see the way that the Wii Remote is designed and you can add the nunchuck attachment, everything that they did made that experience really ergonomic, really effective, really simple and smart. If they can do the same kind of thing with this wacky setup, then I think it will be a really, really huge hit. But if they can't, and it's just kind of confounding how these pieces all fit together, and you put the controllers on the screen, but then put the screen in the dock, and then take the controllers off the screen, and then you got a kickstand on the screen is the thing that you play on, but you can play on the TV. Like,
right.
There's a lot to deal with for people who don't really know what they're doing with video games.
So I guess my concern is if it's only sold as a complete package of handheld and dock together, that it might be a little pricey because Nintendo doesn't really have much of a console market anymore. Obviously, with Wii U is selling as poorly as it has, but they still have a pretty good handheld market. But handhelds have to be affordable. So sort of comparable devices that use this Nvidia Tegra X1 chip are around $200. I don't know a ton about it, but that's my understanding is that a lot of devices that use similar technology are around $200. And if the dock then boosts the power and has like its own GPU, then I'm just kind of wondering how much this thing is going to cost. But at the same time, a couple months ago, we heard the rumor that it was going to use the Nvidia Tegra X1 chip. This isn't the first time we've heard it. This is just the most reliable and confident source we've heard on it. And then in that initial report, we were told that Nvidia tried to get a deal with Sony, got shut down, tried to get a deal with Microsoft, and were shut down, and that basically higher-ups in the company told the team that was trying to break into the console market, get a deal with Nintendo or go home. And that, in turn, they cut Nintendo a really good deal to give them these chips at a really affordable price. So hopefully Nintendo can, sell this as a complete package and also still have it be affordable to the average customer, especially if there's not going to be a defined handheld and console separate markets for them anymore, if it's all one. I'm a little worried that they could end up losing some of their handheld gamers instead of, gaining sort of extra console gamers if this thing is priced not competitively.
Yeah, that's one of the big issues, but I have heard stuff from, I think it was MVC. I've seen a lot on Twitter, people talking about, this thing is actually going to be priced a lot cheaper than you might expect. So
yeah, and that could be due to that, again, to that sort of, that deal they cut.
I'm not too worried, but I think that if they undercut themselves, they're going to have some big trouble.
Right.
I'm not too worried about price, just because, looking at what we've been saying about other Nvidia Tegra X1 devices being around $200, and looking at how even with just those devices, without any extra power, they're able to achieve significantly better performance than Xbox One and PS3, which is about Wii U is more powerful than those, but only to an extent. So it shouldn't be difficult for them to achieve better performance than Wii U, even without any extra bells and whistles in the dock. What I think they might be able to do to pull off making the console performance extra good is having the Tegra chip run in a low power mode when it's in handheld mode, but then when it's connected to a power source, start to run at a higher clock rate. That would allow them to do that without having the separate processor box, and still kind of scale between the handheld performance and the console performance without adding a lot of price. So I think that might be their way of getting around having this really expensive setup, and I'm hoping that's what they do.
Yeah.
And then one last thing that we've sort of seen speculated about, although I don't think this will be the case, is that Nvidia is also they've announced that they have the Tegra X2 on the way, but they haven't announced any products that are going to be using it, and they haven't really announced what its performance is or what its price is going to be. They've said, hey, we're making this thing, and that's about it. So I've seen some people speculating that the reason that they're being so hush-hush about it is that the dev kits are using the X1, but that when NX actually comes out, it'll have the Nvidia Tegra X2 chip in it, which would make it substantially beefier. But like you said, we've heard that it's not going to be particularly expensive, and Nintendo has said that they don't plan to sell it for a loss, and Nintendo has admitted that they priced Wii U and 3DS too high. So I don't see them going for the beefier chip. I think they'll stick to the chip that's going to give them better performance than Wii U while still also being cheap.
I mean, it depends what kind of deal they can get, because if Nvidia really is desperate for a console win, they might still get a good deal even on the X2.
Yeah, and with Project Scorpio and PlayStation Neo on the way, Nintendo's got a lot, of power competitors to keep an eye on, and if they really take off in a way that NX can't even come close to keeping up with, Nintendo's going to be in some deep again. So, I don't know. I could see it going either way, really.
Now, I'm kind of interested in the detachable controllers thing, because in my brain, it's like the two control pieces on the Wii U gamepad, and they just come off of the screen. And looking at kind of the way Breath of the Wild introduces its interface to you, you usually will only see that piece. You don't see the screen if you look at the button prompts. So it feels to me like that's how these controllers are going to be in terms of the number of inputs that'll be on them.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But I'm curious how that works if you have two different people playing, each with one of those detachable controllers.
You mean...
We don't know.
You mean with one of the flanks, one for each person, or each person has their own controller, like a full controller?
Yes.
What do you mean? Yeah, that was... I gave you two options.
Oh, sorry, you cut out.
You chose both.
You cut out a little bit.
It's okay. It's really late here. When you say two people with a controller, do you mean one person with each flank, or do you mean two people with two full controllers, each with all the inputs?
I mean, one person with each flank.
I don't think that would happen. Why would they do that?
Because then it can support two players out of the box, which is something that I think is sort of necessary for this to sell.
But, like, each flank wouldn't have, like, you know, all the face buttons and all... Like, each flank wouldn't have all the inputs.
Well, neither did the Wii Remote, and that didn't seem to cause them any problems.
I mean, but, you know, either side of the gamepad doesn't even have all the inputs of a Wii Remote.
Depends.
Like, I think they'd have to design the games in a way, because all the Wii Remote games were designed to be played with one hand. All of NX's games are going to be designed to be played with both flanks at the same time. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they're gonna sell other controllers for Player 2.
Well, that's why I'm kind of curious what form they're going to take, because it's possible that they could take a form where it's basically a stick or a circle pad, and then, you know, there's enough inputs on the front of it that there's at least 4 face buttons and then 2 triggers on each half. That's possible.
Yeah, that is possible. I don't know how likely it is. I think more likely they're just going to sell these Player 2 controllers as, like, you know, a Pro controller, for example.
I think they'll do that too, to be sure. But
yeah,
I've heard from Eurogamer that they'll allow you to use multiplayer with just the detachable controllers.
We've seen a lot of patents recently for various touchscreen technology, so I think we kind of all already assumed that NX will probably have a touchscreen. And none of these reports really technically confirmed that, but with the Wall Street Journal saying that it'll be compatible with Nintendo mobile games, that almost seems like it has to be a lock at that point. So I think we can probably safely assume that this is a touchscreen too.
And a multi-touch screen.
Oh yeah.
I would hope
That's a good point, because Wii U was not.
Right, yeah, that's what that really says to me, because none of these things indicated at all that there was a touchscreen there. But if it's compatible with the mobile games, there's, you know, it's got to be a touchscreen, and it's got to be a multi-touch screen, because otherwise, you know, in theory at least, the mobile games shouldn't work. Unless they mean compatible, like, that it can connect to them.
I don't necessarily think that it means you can play the mobile games on NX, although that will probably be true for some of the games. Like Miitomo, for example, I could see them having a version of Miitomo on NX.
And they'll call it Tomodachi Life.
Yeah, that's what they should do. I agree. But it won't be the same as the mobile version of Miitomo, I wouldn't think. Just because that seems so dependent on being able to access the services pretty much anywhere you are, like most social media apps today. And then unless, you know, NX has a cellular service connection, which I kind of hope it doesn't, because that's an extra cost that people don't need. I don't really see games like that working.
Yeah. Well, something like Pokemon Go wouldn't work for sure, but, you know, stuff like Miitomo, you can always connect to Wi-Fi, and it wouldn't be a problem. Alright, so that sounds like about it, right?
That's a wrap on NX.
Alright. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to this.
I had one more thing.
Nope, too late. We moved on.
So Nintendo said that they're being cautious about VR, but when I think about the VR experience that most of the VR producers are putting out, a lot of them have a screen that you put in a headset and 2 controller units that you hold in each hand. Does that sound like something that NX could do if they added a headset and more processing power?
If they maybe released like a more powerful dock later on, if that's kind of what they're thinking about with more form factors and stuff. Yeah, that's feasible.
Okay, just curious if I was the only one who had made that connection.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but it seems at least possible, if not plausible.
Yeah, I think you're the only one who made the connection, but not the only one who sees it now.
Yay!
Woo!
Yeah, I don't know that means they'll release it in the next couple of years, but at least it's possible.
Right. Hello everybody, thank you for listening to this Nintendo Week clip, NWC. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to us here on YouTube for more highlights and discussion videos from Nintendo Week podcast, or subscribe to us on iTunes for weekly breakdowns of all your Nintendo news, discussion segments on subjects, games, and more, and tons of other features. Thanks for listening, and we will see you tomorrow with another NWC.